Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of InBox. I'm your host, Rahel.
And I'm Buffy. We have really great story lined up for you today. Let's get right to them.
San Francisco is such an interesting city and a literary one with such famous writers in our history as Mark Twain, Allen Ginsberg, and Lawrence Ferlinghetti.
That's right. He started San Francisco famous city-like bookstore in the 1950s, but many bookstores all over San Francisco are closing. Many readers today find it difficult to purchase books locally.
Bella Chu went out to find out why so many stores are struggling and what's required for their survival.
If you've lived in the San Francisco Bay Area, you've probably seen your neighborhood bookstores disappear more and more over the last few years.
Major stores were large stores like the Tattered Cover and Cody's in Berkeley.
A lot of bookstores closed
Kepler's,
just in this time.
And
there's
those
three of
stores
us down here. And honestly,
either closed or
in a way, Modern Times used to be on Valencia Street and got priced out by their lease.
Closed before we found this spot and moved down here to keep going just up the road. They were
going to close because of rising rents. That we were being forced out. And I was saying, well, I don't think I'm going to open again in San Francisco.
Bay Area bookstore Most Books owner Doris Moskowitz remembers when there were many local options.
There used to be 10 bookstores in this one area. We are 3 blocks from the University, California, Berkeley. So there used to be 10 stores, and now there's only 5. So it's half as many bookstores here as there used to be.
The big issue in San Francisco these days is the cost of living in San Francisco. The cost of rents, so our costs as far as staying in this building, the cost to our employees to live in San Francisco while, earning a bookseller salary, which has never been a way to get rich. It's even more challenging than it is in the rest of the country right now.
Not only rental problems, but also the internet is killing what this independent bookstore stands for, which is the human experience.
The internet sales places like Amazon really are. Amazon is the killer. They offer most of their stock far below what we can offer it at.
People don't have to go outside. They don't have to interact with other people. They don't have to talk to somebody at a counter. They don't have to find what they're looking for. They can just stay in their house on the internet and buy what they need at a lower cost and have it shipped to them.
Where it's like, for a while we thought nobody was going to ever buy books again. But it seems like the people who use ebooks and the people who just buy books have all sort of figured out what they're going to do going forward.
I mean, the thing about a bookstore is it's a place to go where you interact with the book. It's a tactile experience. It's a social experience.
Some bookstores in Mission go beyond just literary. Some of them have in-house art galleries. Others can help you self-publish or even promote your work.
This space is a gallery, and we're really trying to use it to help the bookstore engage with the community around it. And that's always been sort of the goal here, is to use this space to help people foster their creativity. We have writers in residence, and we have a lot of people who just come in here and read. That's good enough for us. Is if people are just in here working or reading, then that's a good use of this space, to be in this community, to be in this space, to be in the bookstore and participate in it in some way. That's what we're kind of looking to use it for.
I used to work for a small press, and I originally wanted to open up a bookstore that was just small press books, but I know that was really hard to do, so I sort of just my wife and I opened the store together, and we just sort of brought everything that we liked about the smaller press books. Well, the only new books that I sell are small and independent presses. They're not always self-published, but a number of them are. Self-publishing, I think, is really, really important. It's something I believe in, and I think a lot of really great works of the past were self-published. And people tend to forget that. James Joyce was self-published, and William Carlos Williams published himself, and Walt Whitman published himself. And I think that's a really, really great way to put yourself out into the world and engage with everybody. I think it's great. It's a very exciting thing, and it ended up being a beautiful...
So, while Bay Area bookstores today face new changes and challenges, neither high rent nor the internet can claim the final world. I think we can agree that there are many more characters to meet and pages to turn at your local bookshop.
It seems some bookstores are enjoying a new chapter of life, one where today readers get the very best experience of books and also entertainment.
Our next story is about entertainment too, one that is very old and enjoying its own renaissance.
Coming up, you are going to the movies. Silent movies. We have spatial screening for you next on InBox. Bookstores are not the only thing suffering nowadays. Silent movies were once popular back in the early 1900s. Some people may think they disappeared, but not so. They also are an art form struggling to survive.
Struggling, yes, but still pleasing audiences. And Ivy Gia found a marvelous museum where you can still see them locally today. Let's watch.
In silent films, the emotion and the meaning of the story is told by the actors alone, their movement, their faces. There are no spoken lines in this film, just the actors on uncomplicated sets. This was enough to excite early 20th century audiences. The Niles Ethnic Museum preserves and shows silent movies where once they were made. David King is a film historian and one of the museum's founders.
We were concerned that history related to the film company in Niles was getting lost, and so we decided to form as a nonprofit. And the obvious thing was to put on regular film programs, silent films. We decided to do it every Saturday night with live piano music.
I love silent movies here. I think because people had to use their facial expressions, they had to show emotions, not through words or sound. There was a different style of acting then. I love the clothing from the vintage area.
I love silent films because they are the first lines in a sort of a conversation that filmmakers have been having since the beginning. And if you don't understand those silent films, you're like a child who walks into the middle of a conversation and demands to know what's going on. You have to go see those to understand what people are doing today.
Most of the equipment is now considered antique. These old projectors screen the films exactly as audiences originally saw them.
So all of this equipment is stuff that we brought in here and fixed up so that we could use it for showing silent films. We had to modify it with variable speed controls so that you can show silent speeds at the right frame rate. Because the cameras in those days were hand cranked, the rate could be anywhere from 14 frames to 24 frames a second. And so you need to have some way to vary the speed so that it looks correct on the screen.
Silent movies are rarely made today. It's being made occasionally. Take The Artist, which won the 2012 Academy Award for Best Picture. Audiences want better action and sound for a completely immersive cinematic experience. Film director Ernie Facilians, best known for popular films including the classical Star Wars, parody Hardware Wars, believes silent film is lost.
Lost because that period of time is over. Because we moved on. Okay, we'll add sound, we'll add color, we'll add this, until today we've added so much that it doesn't even look like a movie anymore. It's just some kind of weird digital experience. Silent film days are over. It's history. But it doesn't mean silent films can't be made in the future. And they will be made if people say, we're not just going to go along and try to make our films bigger, more colorful, louder, higher definition. We're going to find a way to tell a story the simplest way possible, just with a soundtrack.
But for movie lovers who value fabulous acting and appreciate film history, here's nothing better than this. Grab some popcorn, sit back, and enjoy.
That was so cool. We should go check out his showing. Silent films certainly challenge your imagination, and actors like Charlie Chaplin are famous, even today.
Right.
But I want some Ivy's popcorn.
I know, right? Me too. But I have a different story about fabulous food that will make your mouth water. It also faces its own struggle for survival. When we come back, we'll take you to the waters of Marin County and savor the oyster. Stay with us.
The Bay Area is proud to be the forefront of sustainable agriculture. Being good stewards of the land is important to assure healthy crops and profits too for the farmers.
And what's been good for the land is also good for the sea. The oyster farmers in Marin County are dedicated to growing sustainable harvests too. I went out to Tomales Bay to see just how they grow them while protecting the environment.
Tomales Bay is a finger of water stretching from the Pacific into California's Marin County. It is a favorite of fishermen and water sports enthusiasts. It's also known throughout the Epicurean world for its most prized natural product, oysters. Oyster farmers' work begins before dawn. They work in the water and are exposed to the salt, wind, and mud.
Broadcast dispersion.
Martin Seller is in charge of importing the oyster seeds.
In the bay, the seed, we have to raise the seed in a laboratory setting. We have a business that you buy the seed from. And today we're doing some work. They're transferring seed that's sized up to about an inch into floating bags that are going to go right out here behind us on the farm.
Eric Matthias has been an oyster man for 7 years. He's passionate about growing great and tasty oysters.
Floating bags, they growing fast. That's amazing. But like 6 or 7 months, you have a good small. When they sort in oysters, they get the extra small and the small and mediums. And some of those oysters, they don't have no real meat on it. So, and the floating mud, that's amazing spot right there in those bags. And they stay for like over 3 or 4 months, and they make it more fat. good flavor on it. When I came from Mexico, when I was little, I was fisherman. I love water. I like my heart, man, right here. It's my second house right here. I like it. I really like it.
The first to farm oysters were Native Americans in the Atlantic Ocean. By 1869, oysters were transported to San Francisco Bay. Oysters have been farmed here in Tomales Bay since 1909. Todd Friend has been an oysterman for 30 years. He has been an oyster farm owner in Tomales Bay for 6 years.
Farming, I think you have to have a love of farming to begin with, even to get into it. Pretty arduous, pretty demanding. It's not necessarily lucrative either. Although, you know, oysters seem to be a favored food. And so you can get a fair return on the product. The difficulties are enormous in terms of farming them. I mean, of all the seed I put into the bay, I don't get 50% of it back.
Cultivation always comes with challenges. And one of the hardest is the weather.
During periods of rain, we cannot harvest. In 2014, we were closed for 111 days. That is 111 days out of the year we were not able to harvest.
Farming the oyster are not only getting us food, but they also provide the benefits for the environment.
Our effect is really all to the good because the bags themselves create a habitat for other sea, animals.
Are oysters damaging the Tomales Bay ecosystem? Romberg Tiburon Center, Professor Edward Carpenter is an environmental scientist.
Basically, though, having modest amounts of oysters in an oyster farm results in a cleaner environment. Each individual oyster filters about 25 to 100 liters of water a day. They are taking out particles, removing phytoplankton, microscopic algae from the water, and basically the water is a lot cleaner as a result.
Some people say oysters will not be sustainable much longer because of pollution.
The oceans are becoming more acid. Billions of tons of carbon annually coming into the oceans, being absorbed in the oceans. I mean, that is changing the chemistry. At a certain point in time, the oyster is not going to be able to make shell.
That as the ocean does become more acidic, oysters having their calcium carbonate shell will not be able to survive. We have to have more alternative fuels like wind and solar. Burning less fossil fuels would be the way to go.
For Todd Friend and all the oystermen of Tomales Bay, their business survival is a complicated balance of environmental factors, some beyond their control, and the challenge of sustainability. Still, they are the stewards of this bay, proud of their heritage even while facing a very uncertain future.
Todd and his family are stewards of the sea, proud to be a family of 3 generations of oystermen.
And let me just say, the oysters were really delicious. The crew and I ate well on this story.
I bet you did. Coming up, we'll show you another perspective of the Pacific. This one from a dizzying height, only on InBox when we return. From in the Pacific to over it, let's fly. We've all watched hang gliding soar up over beaches and shorelines.
We wanted to see what they saw, so we went skyward. We'll leave you today with a breathtaking view of our Pacific coast. Wow, that was awesome. And thanks to our Eric Ruiz for giving us that bird's eye view. That's InBox today, from a new page in the life of bookstores.
To a movie museum that brings new meaning to silence.
And Oyster, did I mention how delicious they were?
You did. Several times. That's it for InBox today. Thank you for sharing it with us. Goodbye.
See you next time. Bye.